Are you a business looking for a fresh new way to reach potential customers? Well, you need to get airtime on IT TV, a 24/7 streaming and on-demand TV service online and on Roku. With Roku having a potential reach of 62 million people, it's a perfect opportunity to reach potential customers through affordable commercial and infomercial spots. Visit us online today at itnetwork.tv.
Good morning, and good morning. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and I have an incredible show for you today. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to laugh. We're going to learn, and we're going to share some information. But I'm pretty sure there's someone in your network, there's someone in your neighborhood, maybe at your job, I don't know, maybe in your house who needs this information. Maybe they're a new entrepreneur. They're just starting out their business and they want to learn from the experts, but they won't have this information unless you go ahead and share the show with them. So make that post, send that tweet, send that text. Somebody's sleeping peacefully right now. Go on over there and wake them up. But like I always say, friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. So while you're going ahead and introducing the show to your friends and your network, I'm going to introduce our first guest, Mr. John Fox. John uses his creative talents and collaborative nature with his team to illuminate projects around the world by bridging the technology gap and creative passions of design teams into seamless lighting solutions. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning. Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be here, excited to have you, excited to learn all about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, please. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
I would say I'm passionate about lighting. That's kind of what I've been doing for the last 35 years. My wife and I met at the University of Kansas, go Jayhawks, and we were trying to figure out what kind of electrical or architectural engineers we wanted to be. And during that time at the university, I took all kinds of classes. I minored in dance. I took all the theater I could. I took, scuba diving, anything that was sort of interesting to me. I was taking in class and just kind of spent the whole time learning, and lighting kind of just narrowed our focus. And she and I have been doing lighting design and development since we were 20 years old. So, and I'm 52 and enjoying the industry that we have created. My wife and I both do architectural design, and I've been expanding that into construction of product, development of custom lighting design fixtures through our company called ASCENTI Lighting. We've been doing that since 2006. And we kind of just been doing the world of lighting, whether it's overseas. She and I were also nation building for the country of Brunei Darussalam, and came back here to America and been doing work all over the country again. So yeah, this is what we do. We love lighting, and and developing product has been sort of my niche since I first graduated college. So it's been good.
Thank you, John. I definitely have some questions for you, but we're going to go ahead and introduce our next guest to see who he is and what he's passionate about. Mr. Jeff is a guest on the show. Jeff is known as a snow globe shaker who's on a mission to help people shift how they lead and thereby shift their leadership impact. Jeff's the founder of the Nischwitz Group, a speaking, consulting, and coaching company that transforms people and organizations one truth at a time. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning, Sharifah. I'm so excited to be here for this unique conversation.
I would say a snow globe shaker as a profession is a unique profession. Tell us about yourself, Jeff.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody always asks about the snow globe shaker, and it certainly is memorable. And it came to me on the stage about 4 or 5 years ago, this whole idea about snow globes. And snow globes are these beautiful objects. They're generally similar. They've got this idyllic scene. They're really pretty to look at. but the magic of a snow globe is in the shaking. And I started to realize that most people never shake their snow globe because it's pretty enough as it is. And then I started applying that to leadership and life, and it's evolved into this whole concept and approach to leadership. It's the title of my new book called Snow Globe Leadership. And the idea is we have to shake things up, starting with ourselves. And even when we shake things up, everything immediately starts to settle in a snow globe. As soon as you stop shaking, everything settles and goes back to the way it was. And that's what we do. We settle in how we lead, how we live our lives, how we build relationships. And so I've been sort of on this mission of sharing this message of disruption in order to address what I call the leadership gap. Because when I look around the world, not just businesses, I don't see many leaders. And when I ask people, if I speak somewhere or do a training, I'll say, pull out a piece of paper and make a list of all the great leaders you personally know. It's a short exercise because people know a lot of people who run things, who operate things, who might be decent managers, but they don't see leaders and they don't see leadership every day. And so my passion is impact and it's leadership, understanding it and helping people shift how they see it. And most importantly, start to understand that they are leaders every moment of their day. The question is, are they seizing the leadership moments or choosing to step back and not exercise their leadership? So you want to talk leadership? That's what excites me and gets me almost to a giddy state.
Okay, well, we're going to get you to a giddy state today, Jeff. You have inspired me. I feel inspiration today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake some things up, Jeff, just because of you. I'm going to appoint you my new co-host for today's show. So I'm going to introduce the rest of the guests. But when I finish, Jeff, I want you to have a question for all the other guests. Okay, you ready to shake it up with me?
I'm ready. Bring it.
Okay. While you're thinking of your question and what you want to know from everyone else, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, Mr. Alex Williams.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, Alex. Alex is a freelance podcast editor who is constantly practicing new techniques on his own podcast. In 2022, Alex will be launching his most challenging project, The Creation Stories. How you doing today, Alex?
I am doing fantastic. I'm stoked to be here. I've never been on a show that's live and with so many people.
You know why?
Why?
There is no show like the Roundtable Show. I'm trying to tell you what I know. I shake things up. I learned. Jeff taught me how to do this. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a freelance podcast editor. That's how I make my bread. That's how I feed myself. But of course, my true love is my own projects. I started my first podcast, what was it, almost 4 years ago. Next month, it'll be 4 years ago. And I started it in an effort to become a better listener, just sitting down with people I happen to know and interviewing them about their life. And that's developed into a deep fascination with people and their stories. And so, of course, like you mentioned, next year, launching this new podcast, The Creation Stories, where I've gotten to interview religious leaders from different cultures and learn what is meaningful to them. And so all of my projects have really taken this bent of almost an anthropological look at life and at people and at what we tend to care about.
Oh, I love that. I have so many questions, so many different areas that you cover, but we're going to come back to you with all of our questions. We're going to introduce our next guest, the lovely Dr. Nadia. Inventors Magazine calls her the Reinvention Guru. TEDx Novincing calls her the Queen of Reinvention. Dr. Nadia is a scientist, entrepreneur, and author specializing in resilience and reinvention. Good morning, Dr. Nadia. How are you?
Good morning. So happy to be here with all of you. This is promising to be really rich, so I'm excited.
I'm excited to learn about you. Usually I do ladies first, but like Jeff said, we got to shake it up sometimes, make a difference. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? And what are you passionate about?
Well, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a scientist. I'm a recovering academic. I spent many years as a professor in executive education, business schools. I'm an author. I'm a serial entrepreneur, but it all connects around one question. which is how do we thrive in chaos? How do we not just survive uncertainty, volatility, disruption, but actually get better in the process? And my own relationship with chaos started long before I was born. I am from Kazakhstan. You can guess that by my accent and looking at my last name. I'm not from the United States. I was born in the Soviet Union, and about 100 years ago, in the late 1920s, early 1930s, the government of Soviet Union engineered an artificial famine to kill big proportion of population of Kazakhstan so that the land gets empty and free. So 40% of my people were killed in that artificial genocide. And my great-grandfather didn't die in the genocide, but he was an outspoken critic. So he was executed as an enemy of the state. My grandfather grew up as a son of the enemy of the state, which meant he was not allowed to live in any major city all his life. Became a journalist, wrote against the regime, tortured in prison, killed himself before I was born. And by the time the Soviet Union collapsed, I felt like my parents did a good job preparing me for a moment where you wake up and you have no country, no currency, no government, no police, no education, no medical system, and you need to figure out how you're going to make it into the best you can. So from then on, I felt like every year passing and I'm living a deja vu of my childhood and the collapsing systems. Sometimes it's an economic crisis. Sometimes it's a new competitor for a company. Sometimes it's a region or a city that is not doing very well and is going through decline. But it's almost always a deja vu, and my passion is to figure out how to prevent that from happening to somebody else.
Wow. Dr. Nadia, now I see why you were the anchor, why you brought this all together. You are blowing me away because you just mentioned all of this, like you were talking about going to the grocery store and like you were picking up your with a smile. How do you relay that and go through this entire experience and still smile and still be happy?
Well, there's so many layers. Number one is it was not for nothing. I have a daughter who is going to start college next year. My grandfather never knew that even I was born, let alone my daughter is born. But here we are living an amazing life because he had a purpose and he wanted a little bit more in his life. So this idea that your impact, what you do may happen 2 generations down the road is very, very pleasant. And going back to the topic of leadership, I think this long view, this idea that what we do today touches lives for generations to come is one of the sources of passion and strength and hope. That is the biggest thing, is to know that there was meaning in it, that there was a purpose in it, and it was not for nothing. And another thing is I had the luxury of studying disrupted systems for now over 20 years. And my smile comes from the fact that we know how to not just survive, but thrive in uncertainty. It's just a matter of us now taking it seriously and learning it the way we learn math, the way we learn reading, the way we learn writing.
You know what, Dr. Nadia, if I was in the audience right now, sitting down, I'd be standing up, giving you an ovation. That's just amazing. Your spirit is amazing. You're a blessing to this earth. Right, co-host Jeff?
Right on. I loved it. I was ready to, I was getting even more giddy. You promised it and delivered already.
What questions do you have for the other guests, Jeff? You're the co-host.
Well, it's funny because the question that came to me, and Nadia actually used the word, is the word impact. And I feel like not enough people think about impact. So my question for everybody, and it's up to you, Nadia, I'm happy to go first, but what does impact look like in your life? Like, how do you know for you if you're having the impact you want to have? What does it actually look like? How would you know?
Okay, so we're going to bring that back to you as the co-host, and we're going to throw it, since you threw it over to Dr. Nadia. Nadia, you're first.
Yeah, for me, it's easier, right? So I chose a method of thriving in chaos, which is reinvention. What I discovered as I went through systems, companies, cities, individuals' careers that were able to face incredible disruption and do better as a result. I realized that what is unique about them, what unites them, is their ability to renew and reinvent. And there's only one measure whether you reinvent it or not. It's not whether or not you started new careers or new products or new markets. It's not whether you hired people or fired people, moved or stayed in the same place. There's only one criteria of successful reinvention, and that is the level of life in the system. If you are more alive, if your system, your company, your product, your brand is more alive, because of your efforts, you reinvented. You have created an impact. If your system is not more alive, you have not created impact. So I have a single criteria. If people are more alive after the moment that I had the honor of touching their life, I've done my job. So level of life in the system, that's the impact I'm after.
Yes.
But
Do
I
you
would
think-
love to hear about podcast and lighting because, oh my God, I have stories in both directions. So I would love to know more, guys. How do you measure your impact when you are working on a podcast, when you're thinking about products? And lighting products are rather complex. What about you?
Oh wow! See, this is wonderful. She threw it over there to John. John's over there
She does a
disrupting.
good job of that. Yeah, like the transitions. We do custom manufacturing. So one of the things that's hard for our industry is that we're constantly reinventing or inventing ways to do something for every project. And what we have to do is, as a custom product, you're going to be doing a project for a high-end home, or you can do it for a hospital or a hotel or a church. And so the tools that you have is the skill set of maybe vendors and people that or sort of you've kind of done something similar in the past, and you say, oh, well, if we take some of these ideas and we tweak them, we have something that might be closer to what you're looking for. And so ultimately what ends up happening is you're constantly learning and you're constantly being forced to think outside the box. And and the beauty of the industry that I have is that we are never doing the same project twice. And for my team, that allows them to sort of exercise their creative minds all the time. And we kind of started that way. I mean, when in 2006, I had an opportunity. We were doing the design for Louis Vuitton in Vegas, and we were going to do the city center facade. And we actually did the interior design as well, but the exterior facade, they wanted something that was new. And they had an idea of creating that strobe effect that would be associated with the paparazzi that is also currently part of the design at the Eiffel Tower. And they said, okay, can we do something like that? And I said, well, I know there's ways to do that, but here, they hired us to kind of come up with some ideas. And some of the design ideas that we had presented, so I'm presenting it to the architect. So he flew in from Paris, and I'm presenting these ideas, and you could see that glaze over his face, like he's like, all right, what else do you got? And ultimately he said, look, what you presented is all the things that we've already done, and we just don't think those are the right ones. And what else do you have? And it just kind of threw me for a loop because we kind of thought we were outside of the box. And we ultimately decided to go. There was a light fair, a show that kind of where all the manufacturers show up at a big convention center, and it was in Vegas. And so I flew out there, and I was just walking the floor, and I was just kind of picking up things and seeing new products, and all of a sudden I see this little thing, and there's a little box. It was about this big, and had an LED on it, and I was like, what is this thing? Kind of this little sales marketing element, and it just clicked. It was like, I could use this. And we presented this new idea with this new LED that had never been used for video or any sort of technology. And they said, yeah, let's do it. And so we put together a design, and and this is going longer than anticipated, but to give you an idea of what it's like to think outside the box in our industry. We ultimately said, we need to get this built. So I had a bunch of major companies, like publicly traded companies, come up and say, yeah, it can't be done. This is impossible. I said, well, if I can think about it and I can see it in my head, I don't know why it's impossible. And so ultimately we had a no bid, and for we had three different companies say no bid on it. And this project's rolling, like it's got to get built. And I told one of them, I said, they're good friends of mine. I said, look, we're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I'm going to build these fixtures for you. And so I started ASCENTI lighting, and out of the blue, we just started, developing product. We developed custom drivers and LED circuit boards, and built the whole system. And this $2 million installation ultimately was the kernel of what created ASCENTI lighting. And it was out of the idea that don't tell me it can't be done, and we'll figure a way out. And so it's been like that ever since, constantly being told it can't be done, and somehow we do it. So
I love it. I love it. Alex?
Awesome. Yeah, I love this conversation about impact and the different ways that we make our impact, right? John, you might be focused on making your impact through, visual spectacle, or just through the unseen lighting, the lighting that you don't notice because it's working so well. And then myself as a podcaster, it's through the audio medium. And I think however we're making this impact, as long as we're there to make an impact, right? When I worked as a dry cleaners, I was like, I'm going to be the best dry cleaner manager that there ever was. And I like to think I was. And I think a few customers at least would agree. And I think that's the big thing. That's the big point, is making sure that wherever we are standing, whatever it is that we're doing, whatever industry we happen to be in, that we are putting out that effort in an interest in making an impact, not necessarily changing the world, but maybe changing somebody's world, making an impact for them individually.
I think that is so, so beautiful. So since Jeff asked me, I'm going to share my little impact story. I think for me, it's just hosting and doing the talk shows, because I took a hiatus from June to October, and it was like, okay, this show is not doing anything. It's not, that big a deal. And when I went off the air, I got so many emails and inboxes, and people like, no, you have to come back. This matters, because we were able to meet new people and meet new friends and learn. And I didn't realize how much of an impact the Roundtable Talk Show had on other people. And it was just humbling. I think that's the only word that I can say. It was humbling to understand and really hear the impact it had on other people. Mm-hmm. How was that, Jeff?
I loved it. And I had several takeaways from it. And the one thing I'd add, it's really from my personal side, is I tell people all the time, they always say, I want to have an impact. I said, everybody's having an impact every day. Mm-hmm. There's not a person on the planet today, right now, there's not a person breathing who has any interaction with another human being that's not having an impact. But the question is it their desired impact, and is it an intentional impact? Because impact is just happens. And you had an interaction today with someone, and I guarantee you had an impact, but was it the one you wanted to have? And, so I look at it as twofold, knowing that it's every day. One is, my goal and impact is every person I want to impact, every person I interact with, I want them to have an experience that they either learned something, they grew, or just felt better because of that. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. And I take that even literally to someone I see at the store. Maybe it's just giving them a smile. But more personally, if I narrow it down to that impact for me, it's and you read in my intro, on a mission like this calling, I just want people to understand that they're in a moment where there's an opportunity to have a real intentional impact. So my impact goal is to help people know that they're in that moment, and then decide what they're going to do with the moment. Because afterwards, I could have, I should have. I just want to help people see in the moment so they can make a decision right there. Here's how I'm going to choose to lead. Here's how I'm going to choose to relate. Here's how I'm going to choose to listen, or whatever it is. So that's what gets me excited about the idea of impact, that it's happening everywhere, but I want it to be more intentional.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. One of the things I always say is that magic and miracles happen in a moment. So it's just focusing on that moment to have anything occur. Dr. Nadia, what do you think of the responses?
I love them. I think the most important thing is to um, capture this moment, right? I think the last 2 years of the pandemic, we're going on the year 3, guys. Anyone who told me that this will pass on and we go back to business as usual, we kept trying to tell them there's no such thing as business as usual anymore. If it's not the pandemic, it will be economic. If it's not economic, something. It will be technological disruption. If not technological disruption, it will be cultural disruption with the new generations asking for different things from life. And you can see that right now with masses of people resigning from their jobs and masses of companies not able to hire new people because there's a fundamental change in the idea of what is a job and what do I want from life. So it's never going to end anymore. We're going on another year of highly volatile world. How do we choose to capture the moment and use this incredible time to do whatever is that makes us feel more alive, more happy, more better in some way? That's, I think, is the biggest thing that gets me excited from hearing your stories. And I'm realizing that light suddenly it got very, very light outside. So I'll move the light as well. I'm now lit. I think that is from the lighting story. So I would come back to realizing that it actually doesn't matter. Are you in dry cleaning, podcasting, training, development, consulting, coaching, talk show hosting, or building products? You can do amazing things in what some might perceive as irrelevant or mundane or whatever, or you can have something that looks on the surface as an amazing career product and there is no there's no substance, there's no meaning, and we're becoming less tolerant for that. I think it's less acceptable to have no essence, to just have a very nice form but nothing there. There's nothing to unpack. I think we're becoming very sensitive to that and very intolerable. But I do want to ask a question. I'm sorry to keep asking you guys questions, but
that's what we came here to do. That's the point of the Roundtable Talk Show.
It's December. It's a time to look for the new year. What are you looking forward in 2022?
So what Dr. Nadia wants to know, and Dr. Nadia let us know that it is time for a commercial break. So we're going to come back after this break and we're going to find out what everyone has in store for 2022. Be right back.
You need jordansrooter.com. Get free estimates, 24-hour service, special discounts for seniors and veterans. That's jordansrooter.com. Have a home repair or some remodeling you need done? No problem. We can handle all that too. Give us a call today at 800-300-0358. At Jordan's Rooter, we take pride in our work and always make sure to get the job done right the first time. That's jordansrooter.com. We want to be your Mr. Fix-It.
I've had this
Big problem.
I really need a good business consultant.
And I kept searching.
There are so many choices.
It's really hard to find one that has all the things on my list. But
I finally found one. I love it. Ask Sharifah, the business consultant. We are back from break, and we're going to throw it over here to Alex to allow him to answer Dr. Nadia's question.
Yeah, 2022. I'm excited. We are going on year 3, but things are starting to open up a little bit. So I'm actually going to be doing a little bit of traveling around and particularly focusing on some of these new podcast projects I have going on. Of course, like was mentioned, I've got the Creation Stories podcast coming out in January, but I'm also working on a cool family history project. And I'm going to get to go to some places in the UK and in Germany and in Poland and see where my ancestors were from. So that's like my biggest 2022. This is the plan. Fingers crossed.
Wow. Very interesting. Now I have more questions. John, what's your response?
Well, 2022 is going to be a good year for us, I hope, in the sense that the pandemic has really shut down a lot of the development of hospitality projects. Hotels, they're not going to build anything, they're not going to spend any money if no one's traveling. And sort of these purse strings that these developers are looking to open up look to be moving some product and moving some projects forward. And we're starting to see a little bit of that now. But I think what I'm most excited about is sort of our new products that we've been developing specifically for health and wellness. And there's a big push on trying to figure out how to live properly within the context of the modern society that you guys kind of alluded to. With what you do for a job and how you work. And a lot of people are moving home. A lot of people are trying to figure out, do I really want to be in a cubicle all day? And one of the things that we've learned in the lighting industry is sort of our impact on health and wellness. And we know that there are certain colors and certain wavelengths that are beneficial at certain specific timelines during the day, and then harmful at night. And so we've developed technologies that we've trademarked called circadian safe. And we actually carve out these bad or these highly impactful wavelengths in our light at maybe in applications at night. So we're using those things in the hotel rooms. We're using those in some of these homes. And it's just been one of those things where lighting is about fun and about drama and about sort of creating atmospheres and spaces, but really there's an element that the industry has been missing out, which is how should a classroom be lit so that it doesn't harm the children or the people that are there? How should a hospital be lit so that you're going to maximize your wellness? And so circadian safe is the concept of taking those technologies and applying that in whether it's controls or whatever, and making the world and making the spaces that we live in much more harmonious with the actual earth that we live on. So it's been a great project, and it's been very well received. And we've got I think one of the things about hospitality is they're always looking for something that can make their brand more approachable and more safe for their own customers. And so lighting's going to be a big part of that moving forward. So we're excited about it.
I'm excited as well. I will never look at lights the same way, John. You've changed my whole outlook. I'll go to Home Depot and just be in awe now. Not that we're advertising Home Depot, whatever store it is, I'll be in awe. Jeff, what do you have for us?
Well, there's a similarity with Alex in that pre-COVID, I traveled a lot. I was really blessed to travel for work, for personal. And so I'm looking forward. I've started doing some traveling. I've got a number of trips scheduled next year. I know I'll schedule more. I love going to new places. I know one big trip next year I have a trip scheduled next summer to go to Ghana to learn about the culture there and to really basically better understand a different part of the world where I've never been. Professionally, the word that comes to mind is growth. And what that means is you're probably all familiar with the idea of peer-to-peer networking groups, these groups of business owners typically that come together to help each other, to get some coaching. And I look at these groups and I think they do great things, but I feel like there's this gap that I want to fill. And the gap is helping people understand the intersection of life and business better. Mm. There's so much, these groups are always talking about, how do I grow my business? How do I grow my business? How do I grow my business? Strategy. I said, the best way to grow your business is to grow yourself. And that means better understanding yourself. And so I'm rolling it out in 2022, a concept where people will come together to help each other and to grow together and understand that as they grow at this intersection of growing themselves, better understanding themselves, being more self-aware, getting past their own internal obstacles, they will grow their business as well. And I guess I'd say one of the blessings of my life is that when people say, Jeff, are you a business coach or a life coach? I always say, well, if you can tell me the difference, I'll answer your question. And I haven't had to answer the question yet.
Wow. You're a thinker over there. I see you're a thinker, Jeff.
Oh yeah, always.
Keep hitting us with those twists. So I'll answer the question. I'll play along with this one. For me, 2020 is about growth, really growing, really expanding. Because I believe, just personally, this is my personal belief, that I played it safe for so long. You know, it's like nobody's going to watch that show. Who's going to tune in? And now I just want to be everywhere. You know, that's a huge goal, everywhere. But I want to go out more in the community, meet more people, interact with more people, and just grow everything that I'm doing. So that's my focus for 2022. So Dr. Nadia, you have to answer your own question.
100%. I have big plans for 2022. As a community globally practicing in the field of reinvention, we got to the place where today we are a profession. We have chief reinvention officers popping up in major corporations. The state of North Dakota was the first one to introduce a public servant chief reinvention officer. We have reinvention now being taught in churches, elementary education, middle school, high school, and all throughout life. And we have plans for next year around forming the Global Alliance of Reinvention Professionals so that we can really bring more support for people who see that as their calling, the renewal, the recovery, the rethink, and the reinvention of wherever they are, whether it's for-profit or non-profit sector, whether we're talking about product reinvention, process reinvention, or business model reinvention, or reinvention of your mission in life. So big plans. And of course, I want to invite everyone to join us for everything we're doing. We have a big mission. We want 1 billion people with reinvention skills, just like 100 years ago. Literacy meant the ability to read, write, and count. I truly believe this century, if you're not able to adapt and reinvent as you're forcing disruptions and facing disruptions, you will not be called literate. So we would love to see you guys test out our tools, come play at our labs. We have tons of events and resources. So come on over.
Now, I'm going to come on over, Dr. Nadia, but I need to know about these qualifications, because I believe, just based on the fact that I've been laid off 8 times, divorced twice, I've reinvented myself so many different times. But what does one have to do to qualify in reinvention?
Well, it's a fundamental shift in one dimension. We call it the difference between Reinvention 1.0 and Reinvention 2.0. Reinvention 1.0 is the ability to go through one change as a project. You see, I'm spotting the word. I love the word change. And go through one change. It can be a new boss, being hired or fired. If you own a business, starting a new product line, like the product line we heard about today around circadian lighting, which I need at my home because I'm doing it manually right now, closing the curtains, turning off the light, opening the curtains, putting on all of that. So I need it in my house now, not wait until a few years from now. So whether it's whatever is the project, it's looking at reinvention as a one-time event, kind of in the way you think about weddings. You don't do weddings every day. You do weddings maybe once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times a lifetime, but it's not a daily event. Today, because of the speed of change, the average life cycle of a business went from 75 on average to about 6 on average today, and falling. The 60% of companies are reporting that to survive and thrive, they need to reinvent every 3 years or less right now. So with this speed of change, reinvention is not a wedding, it's a taking a shower. If I don't take a shower on a regular basis, I will begin to stink. So if we don't take a shower for our companies, for our professions, for our products on a regular basis, we will begin to stink. And what it means to be qualified is knowing how to build a system, a habit, where reinvention is a normal process, like taking a shower, and not an extraordinary affair like putting on a wedding.
John, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like we're always reinventing. I mean, that's, you know, it's interesting that there's a a desire to recognize that from maybe a society or a business standpoint, because I feel like that's all I've been doing, and reinventing myself, but also reinventing the way we do things from a lighting perspective. We're always reinventing new products, and that's why that's why my podcast is called Design, Build, Ascend. The idea is that we will design something, we'll build it, and then we will move forward in a way that will allow us to recycle that into another attempt at making ourselves better. So we don't claim to be perfect, and we also don't claim that we have that our product will be save the world or anything. But ultimately, what we will say is that we will always be doing better than we had in the previous go around. So design, build, ascend is to always be pushing forward and to accept the fact that you've got things that you're gonna miss. You're not, you're learning as you go, and we want to take the technologies that are available today and apply them. So if you're going to redo something that you did a year ago and you're going to remake it, well, then you're not actually making the world a better place. You're not taking the latest technologies and pushing yourself. So ascending. So that's our takeaway for a business model, and our team really enjoys it. I mean, I think one of the reasons why we've got such high a low recidivity rate is the fact that everyone loves what they do. It's like it's never the same every day. You wake in and like, what do we got today? Well, we got another project in Charlottesville, and they want to do some crazy thing here. I'm like, let's do it. So that's kind of I like that. I like the reinvention idea, and from a business model, we've already been embracing that for years, just because that's the nature of custom. But yeah, I agree. I think that's the biggest problem that industries have.
I like that. You're changing the world. You're saving the world. If people can get a good night's sleep, it's nothing worse than not having a good night's sleep. That could lead to a whole lot of other things. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, actually. And this is kind of ties into a lot of conversations I've been having with friends lately. A lot of the time we'll get into ourselves, we'll kind of be going about our day, but I think we all need that reinvention every now and then. And like Nadia was saying, regularly, right? This needs to be, like a shower. You need to do this often, because I think we like change more than we think we like change. Like a lot of the time people say, they just hate change, or I just don't like change. I like things to stay the same. But I don't know if I buy into that. We like to try new things. We like to see, okay, what if I did it this way? Okay, what if I drop that project and start this project? And we do this when we look at other people as well. If a singer today says, you know what, actually, I don't want to be a singer anymore. I want to direct a film. We're like, whoa. You are not allowed to direct a film. Like that is not what you do. You're a singer. You're a performer in this way. And I think we need to, in our little world, open things up a little bit, maybe shake that snow globe, as Jeff would say, open things up a little bit, and allow others to change and allow ourselves to change as well. I think that just creates a more interesting, a more dynamic, and ultimately a more creative and innovative world as well.
Mm-hmm. You like that segue, Jeff? How he threw that snow globe in there?
Well, I'm thinking snow globes about everything, but as soon as Dr. Nadia started talking, and I'm not sure, Dr. Nadia, you talked about 1.0 and 2.0. I know for me, I have this perspective that people often think they reinvented, but they really didn't. Because back to the word I used earlier, I really feel like reinvention is a much more intentional, purposeful process. Like someone will say, I had this change in my life, so I had to reinvent myself. And I say, well, but did you really reinvent, or did you just react to that change and create another circumstance? Yes, there was a bit of adaptation, but I separate adaptation from reinvention, because to me, and this is one of those sort of things, like we have these old sayings, and my thought on old sayings is they're either old because they're still really true, or they're old because we need to dump them. because people say we learn from experience, and I don't believe that anymore. I believe that learning is a choice, and that I can have an experience and not learn anything, but I had the experience. So I say we've got to have an experience and then reflect on it and seek to understand it and make a decision about what that reinvention looks like. And I think the classic example is how many people, whether it's a relationship or a job, they say, I seem to be repeating. Well, then there probably wasn't really a reinvention. There was an adaptation. And that's why, I'm fascinated by Dr. Nadia, this whole idea of change, because things change all the time. My circumstances change all the time. The question, am I creating change, or am I just, surviving the change around me? So I love this, making me think different.
You are a thinker, Jeff. You're making my brain hurt, but you are a thinker, because I'm like, wait a minute, leave these expressions alone, because I do believe that we learn from experience. But I think the key is that we can learn from experience. We have the ability to learn from experience. It doesn't necessarily make it a if-then statement where if we have an experience, we have to learn. But how else can you learn without experience? You have to go through something in order to learn what it's like to go through that experience, number one. And as far as reinvention, like for someone like myself who's been laid off 8 times, I had to reinvent myself. It was a necessity because I kept getting laid off. I've never been fired. I usually don't quit. And that's part of my first book, where I literally say it was an argument with God when God said, Sharifah, I want you to help people. And I was like, God, have you met people? Like, have you seen them? You know what I mean? I was like, no, I'm going to go get a job. And I get a job at each time. And that's how, and again, I went to college to be an accountant, right? Now I'm a talk show host. I consider that a reinvention, Jeff. We're going to throw it back to you.
Well, and I think there's the thing it's like this additive piece. So many things I think are an add, not an or add on. I just heard it yesterday. Someone was on a podcast and was saying, it's a very old saying, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up, which I agree with. But then I also say, but you also have to get up with something, which is that learning or that new perspective or a different understanding, because otherwise you're kind of just a glutton for punishment. You get knocked down, you get up, and then you do the same thing again. You get knocked up, get down, you get up, you do it again. So I always say, yes, keep getting up, but make sure you pick something up every time, which is that reinvention, that new perspective, that new way of thinking, that new way of being.
I like that. I heard that Freudian slip there, though. He said, you get knocked up and you keep doing it.
I did hear it too, and I chose not to. Yes.
No, I'm not walking away. I'm going to touch
That's all right.
I'm not leaving that alone. I'm like, you keep doing the same thing. You got knocked up once, now 5 times. I'm sorry, Dr. Nadia. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I think Jeff specifically was speaking to you.
Well, I have a luxury. I have about 5,000 practitioners around the world in very different circumstances. The reinventing a small business in South Africa versus reinventing a massive corporation in Canada are different contexts, and all of them are collaborating within our community. So I have a luxury of seeing so many perspectives and applications of life and work around reinvention. So to date, we've been able to identify 9 types of reinvention, not just 2 or 3, just adaptation versus reinvention, but 9 types. And we imagine a 2x2 kind of horizontal and vertical axis. And on the horizontal axis, we speak about scope. So are you reinventing a subsystem, a system, or an ecosystem? For example, if you are in the automotive sector, a car is your system, a transmission is a subsystem, and everything around your car, the suppliers, the customers, the network that sells your cars, the charging stations, everything else is an ecosystem. So subsystem, system, ecosystem. And on a vertical axis, we talk about scope, where there is distinction between incremental, intermediary, and radical reinvention, where innovation would be the kind of upper right quadrant of this portfolio. So 9 types, 3 by 3. And in those 9 types, there's a lot of variety. We need variety. There is no one size fits all. In some cases, you need a small incremental adaptation. In some cases, you need radical innovation. The problem is that we get stuck with the preferred option without the nuanced, sophisticated use of all the colors we have in our palette. Unfortunately, most organizations and individuals play with one or two colors. It's like, I don't know, having just blue and yellow. If you're a Michigan State fan or Michigan football fan, maybe the IKEA fan, those are two good combinations. But generally speaking, if these are the only two colors in your palette, you probably are not using the full scope and you're not being the best version of yourself. Having more, and this is just 9 we discovered so far. Ask me in 5 years, I'll tell you there's 20 types of reinvention. And all of them are needed. The secret is knowing which one to use when and being skilled enough to apply the colors in the right combination so they're not creating a cognitive dissonance or disruption in your company, in your product line, in your community, and so on. So in that sense, my luxury is that I've had now 10 years of experience of working with this field, which is now, scientifically speaking, is quite grounded in a lot of research, a lot of new tools, and a lot of work on the ground inside organizations, nonprofit, for-profit, government, and so on, to practice and to say there is variety. We don't need to be in that either or. We can be in and all the time.
Wow, y'all making me think today. I'm not usually up thinking about all these deep facets at 8 o'clock in the morning, but this has been an interesting show. I really enjoyed it. Now we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching the show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with the snow globe. Jeff, snow globe shaker.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Sharifah. Thanks for this great conversation, a great opportunity to be part of it. What I would share with folks, I guess, as a takeaway is to just, I have so many people that say I want to be a leader someday. And I really, I believe that everyone's a leader and not just as a cliche. And I really hope everybody listening realizes they have moments of choice every day. I think if Dr. Nadia talked about the magic happens in the moments. I believe in magic and I believe in creating magic. And I want people to feel empowered to make a difference. And several people said it's not necessarily always a big thing, but it may turn out to be a big thing, but it's the small shifts. So my invitation to everyone is take the risk to lead. Take the risk to lead. Be willing to shake things up. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Be willing to make others uncomfortable to do what you feel is right and needed in the moment. That's what Snow Globe Shaking is about. I guess this is the opportunity. Anybody who wants to find out more, all you got to remember this is Snow Globe Leadership. You search Snow Globe Leadership, you'll find me. You go to www.snowglobeleadership, you find me. But my invitation is shake things up. That's how we change things in your life, in your world, and in your business. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Jeff. I don't know if I want to Google and talk to Snow Globe Leadership because I like the way I see things. You might turn my whole world upside down, and I like it the way it is. Alex, what do you have for the people?
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway for me out of this conversation has been that importance of impact. And one thing that I've learned over the years of doing podcasting is that the biggest impact that you can have is going to be with yourself, right? So maybe shake up your own snow globe. Maybe, the people closest to you, you can shake up theirs. You can be a leader to them. You can have an impact on them. So instead of focusing so much on, I got to get out there, I got to be the president or the prime minister or whatever, some sort of high title, the CEO, have an impact where you are and have an impact on yourself and allow yourself to be reinvented. I've done that a ton of times. And I think it's important, like Nadia was talking about, to make a habit of reinventing yourself. And if people want to find me, you can go to polytropis.fm. That's poly as in polyester and tropos as in troposphere. It means many facing. And I have podcasts on there about complicated people and about how beautiful and wonderful that complicatedness is in the world.
Thank you, Alex. I don't know if I'm going to be Googling you either, because I love being the president. I got to be the CEO. I got to be the prime minister. I got to be, you know what I mean? I got to be the top person in charge. I don't know. It's just something in me. I'm in the Martin Luther King parade in January.
Somebody has to be. Somebody has to be in charge.
That's me. That's what I'm saying. I'm in the parade, and I want to be in the parade just so I could do my wave. You know, that's how you do it, John. I didn't know. You got to teach me how to do these things. They won't let me be president, John.
I saw it on television once. No, I would say thank you for having us, and you've been a great host, and it's been a lot of fun. And I love learning from all different kinds of industries, and so I'll go to conferences, and I'll spark conversations with people around me just to be able to learn what they're doing. But the whole idea of reinvention and I think that I would really want to sort of preempt Nadia's final points. And Will Smith did an awards banquet where he was sort of telling some advice about what it takes to be successful. And he said 2 things: running and reading. And he goes, running is about learning about what your physical limits are, and so using your physical limits to understand your mental limits, and knowing how, that fact that, that person behind you is going to be, when you're running, is going to be saying, just quit. You don't need to take another step. Just stop what you're doing. And, the more you push yourself, the more you're going to understand where your new limits are. And then reading, which means, there's no problem that anybody's ever had to deal with, whether it's personal or professional, that hasn't been written about somewhere. So the more reading you do, the more you learn, the more you apply the information that you gather and pull in from your world will make you a better person. But I would add that he missed one, and it is reinvention. And so it'll be running, reading, and reinventing, and applying that over and over again, and not just saying there is not just one answer. There's a constant reevaluation of where you are today. And so I think someone should call up Will for his next, and maybe Nadia needs to reach out to him and say, hey, I've got something for your new speech. It's running, reading, and reinventing. And maybe the running can be, or reading can be researching. So who knows? But I thought it was great. And reinvention is definitely the world we live in. So if you want to meet us and get to know more about what we do, you can visit us at ASCENTIlighting.com. And I have a podcast that's called Design, Build, Ascend. We'll have more shows coming in 2022.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Dr. Nadia, what did you think of today's show?
Oh, I love that. I feel like we can go for hours. Like we just had a warm up. So wonderful to connect to all of you. What an honor and what an opportunity on this beautiful Thursday, December morning, just to meet amazing people. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending time and showing up. On my end, in terms of my last message to those who are watching us, it may sound a little harsh, but here it goes. You do not have a choice. Whether you like it or not, you will have to change more often and more deeply than ever before. Whether you like it or not, there will be another disruption, another pandemic, another economic crisis, another layoff, another boss, another new government regulation, another something. So the choice you do have, whether it will be somebody else dragging you through change, kicking and screaming, or you make a conscious choice to play in that game. And my hope for you is that you choose to make change your friend and turn reinvention into the source of ultimate freedom. That is my hope, and that is my wish for everyone who is listening. And of course, we would love to support you on that. So this year, our community crowdsourced and self-published a book that won 3 awards, including the best book of 2021 by Axiom. It's called How to Thrive in Chaos. And if you go to our website, learntoreinvent.com, you can download the 85 pages, couple of tools, new cases right now. And we would love, love, love your feedback on what we put together.
That was beautiful. You don't have a choice. You can choose to change. We had a lot. today. Wonderful. This has been an amazing show. I want to thank you all for being guests on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. And I especially want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch this show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching the show. I appreciate you sharing the show. I appreciate you tagging your friends and letting them know the show is live. But the most important thing is that you support our guests. Please support them. They have come here this morning to share their thoughts, their theories, their information, their websites, their businesses, their podcasts with you. So please support them. Visit their website. The link is in the Facebook description. Follow them on social media. Reach out to them. Send them a message. And when you do, please let them know Sharifah Hardie says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at AskSharifah.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.